All right. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to get into the next event. First of all, I just want to thank Monique for her amazing opening ceremony with the sound bath. So powerful. Definitely watch the replay if you missed it. Definitely watch it again and again if you enjoyed it and feel like it's going to continue to give you healing in different layers and levels. But for now, we are jumping into a brand new event with my lovely sister, Molly Odell. So excited to introduce her. She is a holistic healer, a crystal Reiki facilitator, as well as having a background in clinical nursing. So she has this beautiful perspective on holistic healing with her background in Western medicine as well. And I am so excited for her to share her story about her own holistic healing journey and give you a little insight on how you can heal holistically as well. Thank you so much, Molly, for joining. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Rissa. I'm really looking forward to sharing, and I really know that my story is everyone's story because we're all so interconnected. And so I'm really excited about getting to share pieces of my story, and I know it will resonate with those that it's meant to resonate with. So
yes, I'm so excited. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. I'm going to tap out of this video for now and let you just share your story with the audience. Thank you so much. I'll see you in a bit.
yes, sounds good. Thank you. Yay. All right. Well, for those of you that are joining live, I am really looking forward to this. And for those of you that are listening to this on the replay, I think that it's going to serve. It's just going to serve whether you're live or replay. And so Rissa asked me to participate in this event and this shining light on holistic healing. And, she asked me if I wanted to do a segment, and I was thinking, yeah, I do. I think that would be really great. And as I was reflecting on what I would do in this segment or what I would, talk about, really what came through is I think one of the most powerful pieces of my work is in a story, is in the story of our healing, the story of our lives, the story of our lineages, like how we find ourselves in our own story. Sometimes we find ourselves in other people's story when we hear their story. So I really sat with what to share, and I felt like my story was probably going to be the thing that I really felt like sharing here, and what would shine the most light on holistic healing for me is my story. And so I brought a quote that I'm going to start with sharing here, because I think it sums up so much of what my journey to holistic health and healing has looked like. And so this quote is by Carolyn Myss, and she is the author of Anatomy of the Spirit. If you're looking for a good read, it's amazing. It's a really great book. It's a thick one. It's got a lot of information on it. But if you're totally new to holistic healing, I would really recommend picking up a copy of this book because it just shines light on so many aspects of what it actually looks like to heal. So the quote says, "The process of curing is passive. That is, the patient is inclined to give his or her authority over to the physician and prescribe treatment instead of actively challenging the illness and reclaiming health. Healing, on the other hand, is an active and internal process that includes investigating one's attitudes, memories, and beliefs with the desire to release all negative patterns that prevent one's full emotional and spiritual recovery." And when I read this quote, now this is later into my journey, I just felt like it really hit the nail on the head, because what I had seen so much in my life was like this concept of curing, which is a passive process and really encourages people to give over their authority instead of turning inward and really asking themselves what they need, how they can heal, where in their body they feel is disconnected. Because many times people will know that something is off. They will know there's something going on. And so often it's like that, those feelings, those pieces of our intuition are ignored in a curing, in like a curing way, mindset, right? In how we view health and medicine in our world, in our Western world, anyways. So I love how this quote really does sum up so much of my healing journey. Really that line, the patient is inclined to give his or her authority over to the physician and prescribe treatment instead of actively challenging the illness and reclaiming health. That was a huge part of how my journey shifted. So I was really conditioned from a young age to give my authority over, the authority over my body, the authority over my health, my choices, my life, instead of like actively challenging anything. So I'm going to kind of start in the beginning. I'm not going to give you my whole life story, but I really do want to share a little bit about my childhood, my background, because I really find that we carry stories that affect what we're doing now, how things are now. And if we don't understand that story that we come from, a lot of times we don't understand why we're in the story that we're in. So I grew up in my early years in the Midwest, and I really learned from my Midwest upbringing that little triangle or square on your plate where you have the little plate and it has the different sections for vegetables, fruit, protein, all that stuff. I learned that little square that said vegetables was for potatoes, corn, carrots, and peas. And that's just about the extent of it. Like that is a symbol. This is a symbol that is I'm going to get into that symbol way, into my story. But just keep that in mind. There was a little box, and there was only 4 things that could actually go in that box. And that's what I learned, right? There's nothing right or wrong about it. It's just, that was what I learned. That's what my parents had learned. So they did the best with what they had. They gave me the best with what they were working with. And the other piece of my story that I really want to share, so that you can kind of understand the trajectory of my healing, is I grew up in a conservative evangelical Christian background. So I grew up in a culture where women were not allowed to hold any positions of authority. Women were not allowed to be pastors. They were not allowed to be leaders within the church, unless it was women's ministry, of course, or children's ministry. So there was definitely like patriarchal, like hierarchy in the culture that I grew up in. So that kind of added an extra layer of like the box that I felt like I was in, or like was conditioned to put myself in, So I really internalized these 2 stories, and what was available to me in my life was like potatoes, corns, carrots, and peas. That's what was available. That's what was on the menu. And those are the choices that I felt like I had. And so when I was deciding what to study and like what I wanted to do after high school, I chose nursing. And I always knew I really gravitated towards the healing professions or like the helping professions. But the nursing piece of it was what was in the box. Like it was part of that potatoes, carrots, corn, and peas. So it was acceptable. It was the acceptable choice of what was in the box. And so I decided to do that. I decided to become a nurse. I went through my training. I loved it. I really dove in so many ways. And as I trained to become a nurse, I continued to kind of see the dynamics of what the box looked like in the profession of nursing, in the whole, like the wholeness of what Western medicine was. I didn't know that's exactly what I was seeing, but I could feel it. I could feel, now I know I could feel energetically, but then I didn't know that. But I could really feel like there is something missing. Like there is like a gap here. I'm kind of in this box, but I'm pretty sure there might be something outside of this box. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it looks like. But I think there might be something, like I can hear something out there, or like I think that I can see, you know, something, but I don't know what it is. So I worked my way through nursing school. I was a patient care technician all the way through nursing school, which is like a nursing assistant, but you do a few extra things. So I worked for the float pool. I worked on every unit. So I saw all these different, I saw a lot. I saw basically most forms of medicine that were in the hospital before I actually became a nurse. So when I became a nurse, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with kids. And one, because kids were like so resilient and so amazing, way less whiny. It's so funny that we would think that, right? But like, that's what I experienced in the hospital. I was just like, man, kids like are these resilient little things, and we are resilient as human beings. But I really felt like that resilience was just tenfold with children. So I went into the pediatric ICU. I started working on a med-surg trauma unit in the pediatric ICU. And I loved getting to work with kids and seeing so many of them leave our unit and go on to have a normal life. Like what we would, I say quote unquote normal. I don't really think there is a normal. But they were living a life that was fulfilling, and they had quality of life when they left. And then there was another side of the pediatric ICU that really involved death and dying and chronic suffering, preventable accidents, societal injustices, abuse, trauma, so many things. I saw so many human beings transition from this life into the next life. And I was not prepared for that. I am grateful that I had some type of base for spirituality and faith, and that I did have a connection to the divine because of my upbringing. There's so much of me that really felt powerless to enact any kind of change in the world, or like I felt super powerless as to how to hold myself in this experience of like experiencing all the grief, all of the suffering and the injustices that I saw. And so I had all of these feelings, all of this grief that was just circling around in my system. And again, like I was not prepared I didn't know how to hold myself in it. I didn't know how to release it. I had no idea, like, honestly, that I could feel so much pain all in one moment, and that human beings could feel so much pain all in one moment. And so I had all of this going on, didn't really know what to do with it. So in 2012, I got married. In 2013, I got pregnant. We were not planning for that to happen so fast, but it did. And honestly, now that I look at it, I know it was divine timing. I know that it was such a beautiful plan of the universe for me to get pregnant when I did. Because when I got pregnant, it was no longer my body. It was my body, but I had another life growing inside of my body. And all of this stuff that was swirling inside, that was literally like pumping through my bloodstream, it intensified when I started to have another being growing inside of me. So I was really excited about birth. As a nurse, I saw births, and every single birth I saw, I cried. And I'm so glad, like, I was wearing all my garb, because I was like, all these tears coming down. Thank God I have this paper mask on, because it's like soaking up all the tears. Because I didn't want to, I didn't want to detract from that woman's experience. But it was so powerful getting to see women birth. For me, in all forms. I saw C-sections, vaginal births, medicated birth, non-medicated birth. And it was just such a powerful experience for me. So when I was thinking of how I wanted my birth to look when I got pregnant with my first, I knew I didn't want medical intervention, which is so funny because I was in like the highest acuity care. Like the only thing I didn't do as a nurse was really run the ECMO machine, which is like the heart and lung machine. So talk about medical intervention. I had seen it all. And like something in my spirit just knew that I didn't want that for this experience for myself, because I didn't think I needed that, even though I really didn't know, you know? So I decided to birth at a birthing center, which is a standalone birthing center. It was not connected to a hospital. And my colleagues gave me a really hard time about it. I was questioned. I was like berated, like you're really irresponsible for doing this. And I mean, when I gave birth, like, 6.5, 7 years ago, birth centers and like home births were not as accepted as they are now. But definitely in my place of work, it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal that the birth center was not connected to a hospital. It was a huge deal that I wanted an unmedicated birth. There was so much fear that was circulating around me from all of the voices of, what are you doing? This is irresponsible, is basically the biggest message that I got. And I think that a lot of women receive this message of like, what do you think you can do that? You can't. That's irresponsible. You should definitely be able to be saved by the system, right? By the hospital, whatever it is. Like, it's like taking our, it really is taking our authority that we have over our own bodies and really like replacing it with like fear and dependency. And that's what I experienced a lot of. So the decision, this decision to birth at a birthing center was probably one of the first decisions that helped me to actually start taking my authority back in my own life, over my own body, in my own health, in my own healing journey. I wasn't going to let anyone's fear or the fear of others' opinions win over what I wanted for my body and for my baby. And so I had a water birth, and it was absolutely beautiful. My daughter was born in the caul. So if you don't know much about that, it's where the baby is born in their amniotic fluid sac. And it's actually a really cool sign and symbol that the baby is like intuitively gifted. And my daughter is, it's crazy. She is so gifted in so many ways. And my other two are as well. But the symbolic elements of that for me was really empowering. I didn't know I was capable of doing something that was so divine, so magical, so powerful. And I say this a lot, but I really do feel like I birthed myself that day, as well as my daughter. But it started the awakening for me. It was a huge catalyst in my awakening. So I went back to work when my daughter was 3 months old. And the first day I went back to work, I had an emotional breakdown or an emotional awakening. I like to think of it as an emotional awakening. Most of the time, the language that we associate with that's known in our culture is emotional breakdown. It was definitely that. But now that I feel like I've been more enlightened to what that actually was, it was an awakening for me. And so I saw all of my patients as more than just a body after this experience. They were a soul, they were a life, they were a story. And so was that of their family. Like, the view of the body seemed so off to me now in this hyperclinical setting after I experienced birth. So I stuck it out for 2 more months and then I quit. I just couldn't do it anymore. And a lot of people would consider that burnout. Like that would be what burnout would look like in the medical community. But again, like I really, now looking back at it, I see how it was burnout, but I also see that it was an awakening, and I literally could no longer circulate what I was circulating, that energy in my body. So I left. And I really started at that point in time is when I think I started to head down this journey of what holistic health actually looked like for me. And so here's where my story gets a little windy. So I'm not going to go into all of the things. I'm going to give you some basics here. I quit my job. We sold our house. We moved. We tried to make it on one income. And I felt like I left my career, but I was very much self-identified by my career. I didn't really know who I was. And so I took my new career of motherhood very seriously. And I say that because that's really genuinely how I feel. Like I was like, wait a second, I'm no longer a nurse. I have worked from the time I was 18, 17 actually, because I started my training as a patient care technician when I was still in high school. When I graduated from high school, I had that, and I started working when I was 18. And so pretty much from a very young age, from the age of 17, I was a nurse. I was going to be a nurse. I was a nurse. I was working to be this and to get certified in this, trauma certified, transplant certified, all these things, right? And so when I released that, I had no idea what was left there for me. So I clung to motherhood, was like, oh, great, something I can do, motherhood. And then I ended up having a baby that was very colicky. And it was just so funny because I remember my husband asking me, so why is she crying? I mean, you're the expert. And I was just thinking to myself, yeah, I was the expert. But I just met her at the same exact time you did. When she came out of me, I don't know. And there was a point where I realized I didn't know. I knew nothing. Like this soul, this beautiful new human being. I mean, I knew how to change a diaper. I knew how to take care of her if she was sick. I knew how to do CPR. All these things. But ultimately, like, she was a soul. I didn't know. I didn't know her. I was getting to know her just like he was. And that was a really humbling experience for me because it was like, wow, what I thought I was an expert in, I actually am not an expert. Like, yes, there's things that I know. There's things that I'm so grateful for my nursing background as I've transitioned into this new way of coaching and energy healing with my business. But there was a point where I had to shed that old layer of really being dependent on the knowledge. And I had to awaken to the fact that mothering intuition, I'm so disconnected from my body. I don't even actually know what that means. I don't even know how that looks. And I'll actually share a part of this story in the roundtable discussions as well. But I was really disconnected from my body from a young age because they thought I was having a lot of GI issues. I was having a lot of issues with my period and my cycle. And so they took me to the doctor. The doctor thought I had Crohn's disease. I went to the children's hospital. I got an endoscopy and a colonoscopy done. This is when I was 16, 17. And they did not find any Crohn's disease. They did not find anything actually wrong with my GI tract, but they did an ultrasound and they found that I had cysts in my ovaries. And so they diagnosed me with endometriosis. And so what happened was they put me on continuous birth control from the time I was 17. So I was so disconnected from my body because I didn't have a cycle. I didn't have a cycle for 5 years, almost 6 years, actually. And so there was I honestly didn't even know if I could get pregnant because of all of this, right? And so I think that was another big piece of why birth was such an awakening for me. But I had this experienced from a young age and was super disconnected from my body. And so, that really played a huge part for me in like, okay, who am I? How am I? Because our bodies are all connected, our physical body, our emotional body, our spiritual bodies, we are one. And so when one area of our life is out of balance, it affects all areas. It affects our physical, our emotional, our spiritual. They're all interconnected. So when I really clung on to motherhood, it was like I would do anything to be the best mom because that's where my identity now lies. And so for my husband's job, we ended up moving 7 times within 3 years. So talk about like tumultuous transition after transition after transition. It was wild, and it put an exceptional strain on my marriage, on our family. And that's kind of when things just like totally fell apart. I had 2 babies by that time now. And my husband and I decided to separate in 2016. And I would really consider this like the rock bottom in my life. And it was like another catalyst, another threshold for my healing journey to expand. And so we started seeing a therapist, which I had never seen a therapist before. And that was super healing, it was so beautiful working with a therapist for that period of time. And then I stopped working with a therapist, knew I needed something, didn't know what I needed, but still continued to feel disconnected. So I started working with a life coach, a spiritual life coach, who was also, who also had a background in therapy. And she was really amazing at helping me see the box. Like, I didn't realize that the walls of the box were so defined. And so she was really integral in helping me find that I was actually in the box and I didn't have to be. Like, there was a door over there and it was open and I could walk out of it, but I was so conditioned to stay in the box that I didn't even notice there was a door there. So that was really life-changing for me. And then I started working with a biomagnetism practitioner who is that's a type of energy work where they just put magnets on your body. And it's the biomagnet inside of our body, because I really do believe as we have physical DNA, we also have emotional DNA. It says, I have a poor connection, so I'm going to say that again. As we have physical DNA, we also have emotional DNA. And we find that there's patterns that live inside of us that are really passed down emotionally through our ancestry. And so when I started working with the biomagnetism practitioner, there's so many energetic shifts that happened for me in and around my story in my upbringing and the story within my family. And it was an extremely healing experience. And then not too long after, I met a really beautiful Reiki master who I started receiving Reiki from. And her intuitive giftings were just so beautiful. And really, it was just such a vital piece of how I was able to kind of integrate everything of like, wow, okay, this whole energy thing, there's like something here, like actually think that we might have an energy system and it should actually be taught in nursing school as one of the systems of the body, just like the integumentary system or the circulatory system or the respiratory system is taught. And so from there, I ended up attending a retreat that was so phenomenal. I had never circled with women before. I had never been on a retreat like this before. I had an 8-month-old and I still said yes to this retreat, and I went for 5 days. And that retreat changed my life. It transformed my life in so many ways. I had all this energy work kind of as a prep for it. And then as I went to the retreat, it was like, boom, like it was a catalyst, another catalyst for the change that occurred in my life. I did some coaching with the healer that I went on retreat with after that. And I was retreating monthly for a little while. And then I went on another big retreat. So there were so many steps. I really want to share that. Through all of this, I became more connected with myself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I was able to get out of those boxes that I once knew and really was conditioned to stay in, and I kept myself in those boxes. I was able to move out of those boxes into a place where I did feel connected to myself. And obviously the work is ongoing, right? So it's not something that I'm like, yay, I've arrived, I'm great, I'm fine. No, it's a continual process. And I get to continue healing and challenging the system and reclaiming my own health on a daily basis. And through that experience, I decided that I really wanted to help others find that same freedom that I was able to find. So that's when I started my business in 2019. I started my business and as a holistic health practitioner, and like Rissa said, a crystal Reiki facilitator. And I do a lot of coaching with women as well about like mindset coaching and how to see that they might have a box and how to exit the box. Just guiding them in a different perspective to say, hey, I think I see a door over there. Why don't you check? I'm definitely not the expert, but I get to guide and show women from my own story that it's possible for them too. It's possible for their life. Like they can open the door and walk out of the box too. And they can reclaim their own health. And a huge piece of that is really that our energetic body is so vital in connecting our physical body, our emotional body, and our spiritual body. And when we neglect that piece of our health, and we don't acknowledge it, like I never saw that acknowledged when I was in Western medicine, but I really want to make this clear, like there were so many beautiful pieces of Western medicine, the structure and the assessment pieces and making a plan of care, and all of those pieces I've gotten to bring into my work. And I also get to bring in the intuitive piece of it now, where it's like, I don't know all the answers, but let's see what comes through. Like, let's listen. Let's allow your body to speak. Let's allow the divine to show us. We don't have to have all the answers. It's okay to be in the unknown. And so that is what has brought me to this work. And that was what was possible for me. And that's available to all of us. This type of healing is available to all of us. And like I said, I'm in it. I'm on my healing journey, just like we all are. I just get to, my Reiki master says this often. She says, I'm not the electrician, I'm the wires. I'm the wires and you're the light switch. So I would see a lot of holistic healers as that. We're not the electrician, we're not the light switch, you're the light switch, you get to turn the light switch on. But we get to be the wires, the conduits, the guides behind the walls to help you maybe see things in a way that you didn't see them before. So I hope this speaks to you in a way that encourages you to see what's possible for yourself, and to pursue healing in maybe a new perspective and a new light, especially with everything going on in the world right now and everything that we are carrying. We get to have a chance to put that down. And there's so many people and so many guides out there that have been there and are here to support you. So thank you so much, Rissa, for letting me share on this call. I'm so grateful to be able to help shine light on holistic healing.
Ah, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Molly. Your story is so inspiring, it's so empowering, and it's so informational for people who need to really understand how it all is connected. And I love so much of what you said in connecting the holistic healing with the Western medicine and understanding and appreciation for both, but also understanding how important it is to, you know, discover how to meld it together in what everybody needs based on their own healing, their own journey, their own needs. And just so much information. I know the audience has been commenting the whole time, just loving, loving, loving all that you were sharing. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being vulnerable and for being open and genuine with all of your shares. And I'm so grateful to have you here. Please make sure, all of you, if you really enjoyed Molly's story and want to learn more about her work, please, please, please follow her on Instagram at Molly Odell, 2 L's. And I will make sure to post that in the description of this video as well, so you can link up with her right away and get some of her amazing healing as well. Thank you again, Molly. It was so nice to have you, and I'm so excited for everybody to hear more from you during the roundtable part 1 and part 2 later today. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you again, Rissa, for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate getting to be a part of this.
Absolutely.